Hi, Evie. This is a quick video I made for you to kind of get you up to date on what we've been talking about. I think what we're going to do today and then Monday is I'm just going to make little videos for you that give you an idea of what we've been practicing so that you have time to catch up with us a little bit. So I hope that's okay. You'll still get to meet the other students and work with them. I just want to make sure that you kind of are in the same place. Okay. So if you take a look at this PowerPoint, I'm just going to go through some of the things that we've talked about, and some of it you can kind of do on your own. Okay. So if you could do this by Monday, this would be great. So finish watching the video and looking at these slides. All right. So the unit that we're talking about right now is called matter. And I know you said that you've talked a little bit about matter, and matter is just anything that has mass. So anything that weighs something. So, like, my pen is matter, I'm matter, this water bottle is matter, my cat, who you'll meet sometime soon, is matter. The sun is matter, the grass is matter, a tree is matter, anything that basically weighs anything. Even something like the air or fire is matter because it technically has weight. And then the other qualification it needs is it has to take up space. Okay, so if something takes up space and it has mass, that's called matter. And so pretty much almost everything around you is matter. The only thing that isn't is stuff like light and heat and energy and things like sound waves. Those aren't matter. But pretty much everything else that's living or not living is made up of matter. Pretty crazy. And when we talk about matter, the smallest parts of anything that exists are called atoms. And that's really what we're going to focus on this unit. I don't know if you talked about this at all in your science class, but it's really similar to living things. The smallest part of living things is what we call cells. Like our body is made of billions and trillions of cells. Your matter, or what matter is, so my computer is matter, is made up of billions and trillions of these tiny little pieces called atoms. Okay? So when we think about atoms, and this is kind of tricky to see, I know, on the screen. So here, let me make it a little bigger. There we go. But this is basically the organization of living and non-living things. Atoms are kind of the teeniest thing. As you get bigger, atoms join together and make molecules, and then they make little parts of cells called organelles, and then cells make our organs and our bodies, and then eventually we've got things and animals that are larger than us, and we live in certain areas, and then that makes up the whole universe. So what we're going to be talking about this unit is the tiniest, tiniest, tiniest little thing that exists, okay? Again, makes up everything. When we talk about atoms, generally, this is what they look like in science. So even though we can't see them, because they're literally so, so, so tiny, we can't even see them with a microscope. We need really special scientific machines that probably only exist in like giant universities, and there's not too many of them. But the scientists that have been able to look at atoms notice that basically they kind of look like this. So there's a couple different ways they draw it. But if you notice, you'll notice some similarities between all three of these, right? There's this kind of lump in the middle, right? It almost looks like a pit of an apple or a pit of some other kind of fruit, right? So it's a central part. We call that the nucleus. And there's a couple things inside of it. And then they either draw it as circles or sometimes it's like going crazy around. It actually is almost like flies buzzing around something, or like bees around a beehive. On the outside are something we call electrons. So that's what an atom looks like. You've probably seen pictures, probably mostly like this one. But if you ever see something like this in science, that's an atom. It's the simplest building block of matter. And the way I kind of think about atoms are like Legos, right? If you've ever worked with Legos before, there's different kinds, there's different colors, there's different sizes, and all of those combine to make different things, right? You and I might get 20 Legos and end up building something totally different. That's how atoms work, right? If atoms combine to something, they might make pizza, or they might make water, or they might make meat, depending on how many of them there are. So that's kind of how atoms work. There are three parts of atoms that we generally like to talk about. The first one is called electrons, and electrons have a negative charge. So I'm going to type that in there for you. a negative charge. So the way I think about it is that I think of when I hear electrons, I think electricity. So if you think about electricity, if you were shocked with a bolt of electricity, or people always say, don't go near electricity, right? It's dangerous. It would be a negative experience. So that's why how I remember electrons are negative. They have a charge, which just kind of means that, like if you ever think about a battery, there's a plus and a negative side. The electrons are that negative side. So the electrons swarm all around the atom. So they're what we call something that goes on the outside of the atom, and their charge is negative. Okay, so that's what electrons look like. All right, then we've got protons. If you think of the word proton, it starts with a P, so P stands for positive, but also just the word pro. Like if I said, what are the pros of school? Or the cons of school? The pros would be the positive things, right? So protons are a positive charge, okay? And protons are pluses, and they go in the center, and they just hang out in the center of the atom, what we call the nucleus. I'm just going to put them around like a bunch of grapes. Beautiful. Okay, so that's protons. So far we've done negative electrons on the outside, positive protons in the center. Okay, and then there's one other thing in the center, and that's called neutrons. And when I think of neutrons, I think of Jimmy Neutron, if you know who that is. But I also think of the word neutral. And if you're neutral in something, it means you don't take a side. So you really have no charge. It's kind of like in math, the number 0. It's not positive, it's not negative, it's not worth anything, right? So neutrons have a charge that is neutral. Neutral or no charge, okay? So when we draw them with no plus and no minus in them, and they go in the center. So they hang out with the protons in the nucleus, okay? So the 3 parts of the atom are the negative electrons on the outside, the positive protons on the middle, and the no charged neutrons in the middle. Okay, just a couple more things. This middle part, again, is what we call the nucleus. And if you remember, it's made of these little pluses called protons, and also of these ones that don't have any charge, neutrons, okay? And then the electrons float around outside of the nucleus, okay? And then, when we look at an atom, we basically count how much it has. So this is an atom called lithium. It's used in batteries, and we kind of look at each one. So let's practice. How many electrons does this atom have? Well, if I go to the outside, I see 1, 2, 3. So this one has 3. Okay. When I look at protons, those are the positive ones, right? So this also has 3 protons. Okay. And here's a general rule. The positives will always equal the negatives. So if there's 3 electrons, there's always going to be 3 protons. Okay. There's 3 of each. And then a neutron, it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And a lot of times this number is different. Sometimes it's the same, but protons and electrons are always the same. Okay, so then what I would like you to do, if you want, you can click on this and watch this cheesy YouTube video of this family singing a song about the atoms, but they're singing it like the Addams Family, the show. Take a look at this periodic table. This is what the periodic table looks like. You've probably seen one of these before, but every atom that exists is on this periodic table. So when it says H here, that means that's an atom of hydrogen, and it just tells you some information about it. We'll talk more about that later. Take a look at this because it's just telling you what an element is. Elements are basically like atoms. And then there's 3 videos to watch if you would like. This one's a TED Ed, and it's really good about how tiny atoms are. This one's a fun one. This is the actor Harry Potter actor, and he's reciting all of the elements in a row because he's a good actor. And then this one's just kind of goofy and fun. This is the periodic table song, just to get you familiar with some of the elements that exist on the periodic table. Okay, so that's all you're doing for today. I just want you to take a look at all of those things and follow along with me on the video, and you should be good. Okay, have a great day.